Okay, we're like less than 2 months away from Satisfactory 1.0, and we're going to be even closer by the time I post this video. I'm very excited. I just hit tier 6. I just unlocked, well, I'm not going to tell you, it's a spoiler. If you don't want to know, stop watching the video. But we're about to walk through my factory. But there's some cool stuff. Okay, so we're going to jump in the game. I started this, I called it the last save before 1.0 because I really like starting new games, but I just wanted to stick with 1. So I figured if I call it that, I'll see it every time I load the game. So let's load it up. First thing you see is my map is full of waypoints, and I don't know if that's a testament to like how much stuff there is on this map or the fact that I'm just really disorganized, but I try to mark like every ore node that the resource scanner picks up or that I maybe want to tap into later. It's not every single one on the map yet, but that way I don't have to keep using the resource scanner over and over again. I just already know. And then for a while I was marking every time I would have to make a container for the wood and the leaves I would pick up, because I went through sort of a phase where I really just enjoyed cutting down trees with the chainsaw. So I spent a few hours doing that. And then of course I've been marking all the hard drives I found. Let's see if I can find one that still has the requirements on it. Yeah, so I've been using this person icon for the ones that still need to be opened, and then I'll put the requirements in the name. But then once I've opened them, I'll change it to a check mark, and that way I know which hard drives I've gotten, so if I ever need to unlock some alternate recipes, I know right where to go. The main areas of the map that I've been spending a lot of time in are right here in the forest area where I started, and then down here where there's a couple nice coal nodes and some sulfur. This is where I got my first steel going. Up here in this area is where I started my coal power. It's kind of like a crater with a lake in the middle. And then up here is where I got my oil. And I've done a little bit of exploration. I can't remember exactly what I was looking for, but definitely ran into some hazardous creatures up here on the north side of the map. I think I was just after this sulfur up here, mainly. But anyway, so that's the map. Those are all my icons. Right now we're at my first base. This is where I usually start a Satisfactory playthrough, so I have my hub and my space elevator right here. These really haven't moved much since I started. I think at the beginning of the game I had my hub up on this hill here. But you'll see over here I have these iron nodes I started with. I really enjoy the glass walls, so I kind of put those everywhere. But I don't really use this base as much anymore. I spent some time tearing it down. This used to be a much bigger storage facility, and then we have this recycler here that I've been throwing a lot of stuff into. I got some extra constructors here because I was trying to process all my mob drops into DNA so I could unlock more tickets, and then my power started to surge, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for this base. And then I headed over to the coal lake place over there, a little further northwest of here. But up the hill here was where my copper was originally, and then we can hit the steel base to the southeast here, which is where I spent a lot of time. This one I spent quite a bit of time trying to get some sort of aesthetically pleasing cosmetic sort of situation happening. I ended up spending maybe a little bit too much time on it and not really utilizing it, but I think I learned a lot in the process. I really got into the glass foundations, but they were a little bit expensive for me at the time. I didn't really have the steel to sort of justify that design quite yet. But here you see over on this side I have, this was going to be my ultimate steel factory, and then I realized I was going to need a lot more infrastructure than I was willing to build, and I didn't really know how to get it all to work the way I wanted to. But we've got this intricate system where everything is stored down below and then it's piped up, and you have the intermediate layers of materials, and then they're processed up on top, and then they're shipped back down to the shipping containers down here. I really like the layout of this, and I come back here and grab steel whenever I'm in the area and I need it. But it just kind of ended up being a little bit too much. But I like the build. I think it looks cool. We can come down here and we can kind of look at what logistics I have going on. This was supposed to be the logistic floor, but it just kind of ended up being a little bit too small for what I needed. And all the logistics ended up being like right behind all the storage containers. But I really got the hang of using like the holes in the foundation and kind of weaving all the belts together to go where I wanted to. This definitely isn't the kind of setup that I would recommend. I definitely feel like spacing things out a little bit more is more intuitive. But let's see what else we got going on here. Over here is my concrete, and this was originally where I made the reinforced beams, like whatever the hyper tubes are made out of, which I haven't really done any hyper tubes on this map yet. I really need to. I've been making use of the zipline in this playthrough, and also the parachute. They're kind of a good combo, but let's not get distracted. This is the blueprint designer, which I actually have not even done any blueprints on this build, I'm pretty sure. And then this monstrosity is when I started to get serious about nobelisks, and really just once assemblers started to enter the picture. This was kind of the setup I had going. Here's my project assembly. I'm kind of glad I left this operational because we're going to need so many of these for tier 4, or for phase 4 rather. In fact, I should probably build more storage, but we'll do that later. All the way up here is more coal and sulfur this steel is being made out of. See, who needs hypertubes when you have this thing? This is like really handy. It's much cheaper than a huge hypertube network. I really like the aesthetic of these steel frame walls mixed with the glass foundations. I wanted to do my whole base like this, but like I said, I really just did not have the steel to do it at the time. And now that I do, I'm way more focused on just moving through the progression rather than aesthetics. But here's where that sulfur is coming from. I spent so much time just cutting down all the trees and stuff in this forest. At the time, I was very scared of the spider enemies, and so I kind of wanted to maximize visibility as I was traveling through it, which sort of worked out well, but once you get used to them, it's not that bad. Okay, so we did the hub and we did this steel hill. Let's go to Coal Lake, which is usually like my main base late early game. Like I was saying, this parachute zipline combo is OP. All you have to do is hold down left mouse click, and I think you actually can just do the right mouse click, and that'll just keep it open. And then every time you jump, just hold down spacebar and it'll open up your parachute, and then you can just aim at the next power line and just like kind of keep that going, and then you can travel really quickly. Like even if you're going too far or too fast in one direction, you can make like some pretty tight turns. You just kind of, as you're going, you have to like jump around the poles. So if you set them up like in sort of a zigzag fashion, it can help with that. But once you get a break in the wires, it kind of ruins the rhythm of it. Oh yeah, up that way to the northeast is where I got quartz. Actually, we should probably hit that before we go to Coal Lake and the oil, because we'll end at the oil. I'm really glad I went for quartz early because making signs in this game is so helpful for me. I'm very scatterbrained, and so just being able to build signs on everything and know where everything is super duper handy. So if we fall down here, I think we can just ride these power lines pretty much all the way over there. This is a really beautiful area of the map. It's just like the void down there with all the clouds and stuff and the fog. And I guess this is where you can do water power later, geothermal power maybe. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't unlocked it yet. No spoilers. See, check that out. That is just beautiful. This game is just a pretty game. And then every once in a while, I built just like a very long bridge. Actually, I think I got trapped over there, and so I had to build a bridge in order to get out of there. And that was all the concrete that I had to escape. But we're actually going up that way, and I don't know that I have a good path here. I think we can go up this way. This might be good. And let's see if I can just build the power lines. See, if you're really careful, sometimes you can just get one to land, boom, and then you can just ride it up. So this is very handy for traversing the landscape. As long as you have enough wire and cables on you to build the poles, and if you got the zip line, you're good to go. I also really hate the fact that I used ladders for so long in my last playthrough, but they are still kind of handy for areas like this. So eventually I would like to have the infrastructure to just be able to get to the different areas on the map, especially the ones that I use frequently without too much trouble. But at this point, I don't really come up here for quartz that much. It just gets shipped down to my base, but I did kind of want to let you guys know what it looked like up here. Another trick I use a lot is if you open your parachute on these ramps, you can just kind of float up them, and it's a little bit faster than running. Not by much, but any time saved is good. Okay, up here is the quartz base, and you can see I have a little bit of infrastructure, like some biomass, but really all I kind of had it for was these quartz miners, which it looks like none of this is actually going back to my base. I guess there was another quartz node closer, but you'll see that I really love the signs. I just kind of put the signs everywhere, so I had to go for the quartz, had to get the crystals going. So there you go. Now we're all the way up here on the northeast side, and now we're going to go east to the Coal Lake area, which is probably where I've spent the most time in all of my Satisfactory playthroughs. Also, one disadvantage to having all those waypoints on the map is it really does clog up your radar up on top of the screen there. I know you can turn them off, but I just haven't taken the time to figure out which ones I want active. But there's where we're going, that recycle marker, so we'll follow that direction. You can see the space elevator sticking up there, which is really nice. Once I have to turn in parts for each milestone, I can just kind of aim towards that. This is one of my favorite areas to fly over because there's just so much open space, and you can just float your way back to the hub over the abyss I think it would be cool to get rid of these bridges eventually and just let it be open here. But yeah, you can see how much of the world is yet to explore. I mean, I have explored quite a bit of this, but I haven't really expanded my infrastructure into a lot of it. It's always surprising to see areas that I haven't really gotten to. Like, actually, I'm not even sure if these ones you can blow up or not, because I've blown up so many of these poison nodes that, yeah, see, those ones are not destructible. I kind of figured. Okay, so up we go. Let's see if we can float up this hill with our parachute. Yep, there we go. Took us a little bit of the way. Yeah, hypertubes should definitely be higher on my list. But here is, you'll see a lot of these biomass setups that I've dropped all over the map, because I was doing so much use of the chainsaw that I would run out of biomass, and then I would have to use the wood and the leaves that I had in my inventory to make more on the spot. And then you can see here the sulfur coming down the hill here from this sulfur miner up here. We've got it piping into a storage container and then back down. I think it's good to have buffers like this. I need to learn a little bit more about logistics and efficiency to really explain why, but you'll see a lot of those kind of buffers around my bases. And then this crazy ramp and power pole action going on. Eventually I'll get all this cleaned up and it'll be a big mega base everywhere. But here is my crowning achievement, Coal Lake. We got all the coal power going down here. And then you can see the water there. Up here, I was setting up some auto wiring constructors and assemblers, but then I ended up having enough already for my project completion, so I never finished that. Didn't really need it. Down here, outlined in orange, is my steel setup, and then we have some recyclers, some chests for inventory management. You can see my use of signage here. This is the advantage of unlocking quartz. I haven't really spent a whole lot of time with the aesthetics in this phase of the game, but I had some fun here. Always got to remind yourself not to throw away valuable materials. I also discovered that if you throw food in here, it actually will not even process the food. It'll just sit there. So that's kind of handy. And now we're clogging up the system. Let's fix that up. And we'll show you the rest of the base here. Oh geez, it went on the other belt too. My bad. That's okay, now we got Mark III belts on both sides. Here's my unsorted chest. This is kind of just where I throw stuff. Not necessarily stuff that I want to get rid of, just stuff that I haven't really sorted out yet. So every once in a while I'll just grab everything that's in here and then I'll throw back in whatever I have doubles of or anything that doesn't really need to be in my inventory at the moment. So you saw the power plants from up above. Well, let's start up here with the coal miners. So there's several coal miners up here to the north, and so we are tapping into all of these, and we have them all joining up here in the center on a series of belts, and those are leading back into the base here. I took a little bit of time setting this up to make it kind of aesthetically pleasing and just organized for my own sake. And then it goes down here where it meets up with the sulfur, and we're making compacted coal for increased efficiency. I also piped some concrete down here just so I could make all the foundations that I needed. I spent a lot of time trying to get these to 100% efficiency, but it ended up being too tricky for me. Also, I think I just do not have enough sulfur coming down. But I spent a lot of time messing around with these stackable conveyor poles here, learned a lot about how to get those to work smoothly with this kind of setup. And then we got another one of the coal lines heading into the steel setup here. So we've got our foundry here with some iron making the steel, the ingots, of course the beams for our Mark III conveyors, and then we've got stators for our auto wiring. This is our steel shenanigans, as I've named it on this sign here. And then you can see my other project assembly. I started here, and then I ended up realizing that I didn't even need it. So in true Andy fashion, I left a note to myself. Here you can see a couple different collections of coal power plants over here. They're being fed coal and water through the bottom, and then the second set of them is enclosed in the foundation like a sandwich layer up top here, which this ended up being very cluttered and kind of hard to upgrade when the time came to change it all to Mark IIIs. So I don't know if I super duper like this, but it is kind of cool to jump through here and see all the conveyor belts weaving in and out. So this was the second and third set of coal generators I made. But on the first one, the coal actually goes around the outside, wraps around instead of going through the middle. I kind of like this because you can see the infrastructure on the outside, and then it's not quite as hidden in between. And the power lines in the middle look really cool too. I also don't remember why I had to have one of these elevated. I think something just didn't kind of work out or fit. It was probably this huge rock underneath it. And what else? Maybe we'll start from the bottom. So we did the steel, and then we've got the compacted coal over on the other side here. And then once you go up, you can see all kinds of stuff going on. We have more biomass here, of course. Limestone and concrete up on this hill, which I never straightened up and put on foundation. Oh, and here's where all the quartz is coming in from the north here. And then way over there, you can see all the coal coming in as well. All of these machines here were kind of stopgaps for me to get the stuff that I needed when the rest of my factory wasn't performing efficiently. So if I needed a stack of iron plates or whatever, I could just throw in a bunch of ingots here and get it going. Especially reinforced plates, I was very short on those for quite some time. But as you can see, this is like definitely a work in progress. I just recently made all these right angles because they were just weaving everywhere before. So now it's a little bit nicer to look at, but it still kind of looks like a mess. And there's no signs here yet. Some here and there, stuff that I've worked on recently, but we just have the belts coming out of the storage crates, which is how I used to do it before I embraced the signage. And we got a couple extra here which aren't in use yet. We do have the coated concrete flooring, I think it's called. This is the one made out of plastic. Yeah, the coated concrete, and we'll see the oil and the plastic setup in just a minute. That'll be our next stop after Coal Lake here. And this, I guess we should start at the top up here and go down. This is my screw factory, which is kind of my first standalone factory that I did. Back in my previous playthrough, this area I had like a whole rotor factory here, but this playthrough I just kind of did a screw factory. So on the top here we have the screws, and they're actually using an alternate recipe now, the cast screw, which is just made out of ingots. But you can see everything being piped up and down here. Of course, below it we have the rods, and then each floor is actually labeled, and then power is routed individually to each floor. So this was kind of the concept I wanted for this factory, which is kind of what I used in my router factory on my previous playthrough. And then we cleared out the bottom floor, and you can see everything coming out here. Honestly, I need to just redo all of this because it's a little bit of a mess, but like some of it's labeled. Like this is the reinforced plates, which uses plates and screws, but I was in a hurry making that sign clearly. And this one is modular frames, which is using reinforced plates and iron rods. Maximum clarity on that sign for sure. And then if we go further down, we have rotors, which is rods and screws. It all made sense to me at the time and helped me progress, so I guess that's what matters. But it's definitely not an aesthetically pleasing part of the base here. And let's see what else there is to see over here at Coal Lake. I think we got most of it, honestly. I built these foundations above everything because I thought I was going to route a lot of stuff up top, but I ended up just kind of leaving stuff where it was for the most part. But there was a grand vision of organization here that I never really quite realized. So maybe eventually I'll get back to it. But I am pretty proud of this like massive epic line of conveyor belts for the coal. This is probably the coolest part of this area. Okay, now I guess it's time to go to the northwest and we can show you the oil setup, which I've just started. And to give you an idea, I think I am 65 to 70 hours into this save. I know there's players who have done it much faster, but for me, this was like my first time getting this far. And I've learned so much in the process that I could probably do it in half the time at this point. But it's not a speed run. I've been having a good time with it. I've been doing a lot of aesthetics in the meantime. So there's hours and hours I've spent just running around chopping down trees or planning out the aesthetics of a base, or just trying out different logistical strategies. So eventually I'll do a run that is maximally efficient and fast, but this one was definitely a learning experience and just the experience of enjoying the video game, which I think is also important. Here you'll see one of those random crates full of wood and leaves, which is scattering the whole map. And then here is where all that quartz is coming from. As you can see, that belt doesn't go back to the base. I ended up pulling it in from another direction. A little bit of a shortcut there. But let's turn around and let's make sure we're going the right direction towards this oil. And we might end up encountering some enemies over this way, which I don't really want to fight anything at the moment. So I'm going to kind of go around this way, be a little sneaky, and we'll see if we can get to the oil extractors without making any of the wildlife angry. But I have to admit, they are pretty aggro, so I'm just going to keep running. Here's a hard drive that I opened up, and we can see more garbage that I've just left across the map. Not very environmentally friendly of me, but this is a beautiful little forest here, and I think we now have our gas masks, so I might be able to just go through here without getting damaged. So let's see what happens. Actually, we might be high up enough that it's not going to affect us, which is good. Oh, it looks like according to the UI, I am out of gas mask filters. I wonder if it just ate up one from my inventory there. I guess I'm gonna have to make more. And those are actually gonna be made over here at the oil base, which is where we make our fabric. Well, you'll see there's a bunch of byproducts of oil processing that I wasn't necessarily aware of how all of it worked. Thankfully, I didn't spoil it for myself very much. I've never really watched very many YouTube Satisfactory Let's Plays, but I guess a lot of Let's Plays are very long. So much of what happens at these refineries has remained a mystery to me. So if you'd like to retain the mystery, now is where you might want to stop the video. But this is basically the farthest I've gotten in my playthrough so far. We've got our oil extractor here, and it is pumping out crude oil and passing it on to these refineries. We're making plastic here. Here we're making rubber. This one is making fuel and polymer resin. You can see I was just kind of figuring out how everything worked, so I haven't put them down on foundation yet, but I kind of made a circle of foundation around them, and I'm going to slowly transfer it over. And then we've got the byproduct. This is going to be the heavy oil residue, and we're turning that into residual fuel and petroleum coke. And then you can also turn it into residual rubber. You can see I left a note to myself that I was out of quartz, and so I didn't have enough to make the sign look fancy like I did with these. But the rubber is actually made with water instead of oil byproduct, which is interesting. And then it's made of the polymer resin. So that is kind of what we got going on with oil so far. And then over here, we have the wood and the leaves getting piped into here, made into biomass, and then combined with mycelia, which is the mushrooms. So that's over here, and then it gets all pumped in and it makes fabric, and that's what the gas mask filters are made out of. And then I had some extra signs up here because I was getting ready to put all this on foundation as well. So kind of a halfway finished project there as well. But that is it. That is kind of my Satisfactory base so far. Like I said, I'm just around 70 hours into this save. I've been playing this about a month, and I'm going to see how far I can get before 1.0 comes out. Hopefully I can make it not quite all the way to the end, but close, and that way I will be in a good position to decide how I want to play through 1.0 when the time comes. So thank you guys for watching this video. I got a couple requests from my last video to show my base, and so I just kind of thought I would make a quick video on that. Check out my last video if you didn't already. It's an overview of why I love Satisfactory, what I think is so great about it. And thank you to all the people who watched that video, all the support. It has like almost 8,000 views now, which is like the most any of my gaming content has ever gotten. I'm used to getting like 100 views on a video, so 8,000 is just wild. And thank you to Snoot for also commenting on it. Thank you for running such a great gaming community, making such an awesome game. I'm very excited for 1.0. I hope you guys are too. Like this video and subscribe to this channel for more Satisfactory content, and we'll see you next time.